We're going to call a special meeting of the Traffic Advisory Committee to order. It's Tuesday, April 23rd. It's 5:00. Let's do roll call.
Committee Member Pacheco,
Here.
Police Commander Doza,
Here.
Fire Chief Gutierrez,
Here.
City Engineer Patel. No Myrick.
Okay, and no Marcus. Okay, terrific. Item 2. I want to make a motion to add a presentation about AB 14 to agenda. Presented by Adolfo Gonzalez. We need a 2/3 vote to get it on the agenda. So, anybody want to make a motion to get it on the agenda?
I make a motion to add it to the agenda.
Is there a second to that?
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
I,
Terrific. So let's get Mr. Adolfo Gonzalez for the presentation.
oh,
Good evening, Committee Member Pacheco, members of the TAC. My name is Adolfo Gonzalez, Project Manager of the City Manager's Office. And today I'm pleased to present a brief overview of Assembly Bill 413 as it relates to parking near pedestrian crossings. AB 413 amend section 22-500 of the California Vehicle Code. It was approved by the Governor of California on October 10th of 2023, and it became effective January 1st of 2024. AB 413 amends the entire, some portions of CVC 22-500, but the most notable change is in subsections N1 and A, where it basically prohibits vehicles to park, stand, or stop within 20 feet of marked or unmarked crosswalks. In other words, one vehicle length, unless the intersection has bump outs or bulb outs. Then that distance is then reduced to 15 feet. A local jurisdiction has the authority to enact a local ordinance to reduce that distance, but it has to be done under a local ordinance if the agency wishes to change the state statute. So prior to January 1st of 2025, warnings can be issued at locations that are not marked or have no signs. So no red curb or no parking signs. They have to be marked in order for a vehicle to be cited. If the area is not marked, then they cannot be cited. A warning should only be issued. But beginning January of 2026, any vehicle parked, regardless of whether the location is signed, marked with red curb or not, any vehicle can be cited for parking within 15 or 20 feet of the intersection. Here's one example of a marked crosswalk location. And as you can see, this depicts approximately a 20-foot red curb or red no parking zone on the approach only. So this applies to the approach for each approach to the intersection or to the crosswalk. And that red curb or no parking zone begins right at the crosswalk line. This is another example of an unmarked crosswalk or crossing location. And again, if you notice, it is within 20 feet of the crossing location or of the unmarked crossing location. And generally, that area begins right around the beginning of the curb of the intersection. This is an example of a location that has a bump out or a bulb out. And the red zone marked here is approximately 15 feet from either, if there is a limit line, from that limit line, if there is no limit line, from the beginning edge of the crosswalk. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Any questions?
Question.
Yes, sir.
So can you go back to the one that showed Broadway and then Scout? So are you saying that even if there's no crosswalks and I mean, it's probably not a good idea to be crossing Broadway at Mescal if there's no crosswalks, going to another intersection. But even in that scenario, there still has to be these 20-foot.
That is correct. That is correct. This is an unmarked crosswalk. So legally, per the California Vehicle Code, unless there are signs restricting a specific crossing direction, this is a legal crossing, and therefore you can't park within 20 feet of that legal crossing.
Any other questions? I just have one. Just, for me, I think it's a great idea that, is the city gonna paint those areas with the crosswalks red?
That is a decision that the Public Works Director will need to make in conjunction with their traffic engineer. The cost of maintenance and installation to do this citywide would be fairly high. So it may be cost prohibitive to be able to do this citywide.
Okay, that's understandable. Little concern I have, if you don't mark it, they're gonna. There's no way, it's hard to enforce what you don't see.
That is correct.
And unless you follow the law verbatim, follow the law of knowledge, people are gonna do what they've done and they still do today at any corners.
Correct.
And to punish them for no visibility, isn't that gonna be hard to enforce? Maybe that.
If you recall, at the beginning of the presentation, there is a period where
Yeah,
so within 2024, the year that we are in right now, within the current year, if the area is not marked, if it has no signs or no red curb, then a warning could be issued to that vehicle. The idea is that by issuing these warnings, people will get the idea that they can't park there.
I hope the city thinks that there's signs saying only go 30 miles an hour throughout the entire city.
Sure.
And 10, 15 before or after, people are going to go past 30 miles an hour without any kind of awareness, any kind of reaction, and they'll probably get away with it.
Right.
I think we need to think about if we're going to follow the state, we need to really consider.
Correct.
I think painting them red, or else people are gonna get upset. There's no, and I totally agree about the warning, but warnings often don't do a whole lot of good. So that's just my only.
And just to give you an idea of a cost, for example, in an area where there are no sidewalks, and we do have several locations where we don't have sidewalks, in order to be able to establish that 20-foot no parking zone, it would have to be done by signs, no parking signs. And just the cost of installation of one sign, and that's materials and labor, that's about $500. So for one intersection we needed to install one sign at each one of these approaches on a four-legged intersection, we're talking about $2,000 for that one particular intersection. So
Totally get that. Maybe we can just build the state of California. I said that in all jest, but I just worry about doing things that you can't enforce because there's no notice, but that's a different subject and a different day. Thank you for your report. This is the time for the public wishing to speak or to address the commission on matters within the jurisdiction of this meeting. They may do it for up to 3 minutes. Please state your name, and it has to be on items that are not on the agenda. So if you want to talk about Sam Tableau, or if you want to talk about traffic calming, save it. But if you want to talk about, I don't know, Luzerne Street, that's acceptable, whatever it be, but nothing on items that are on the agenda.
Good evening, committee members. Michelle Overmeyer, resident of Seaside. I want to comment on this presentation. It was not on the agenda until right now. So I think that it is important. I'm glad that city staff brought it to your attention. I think we've all heard quite often people saying how challenging it can be to pull out of side streets when they can't see oncoming traffic. I see this a lot in my neighborhood on Mingo. It's a big problem there. So this intersection daylighting law is very important. I think that the city should act with urgency to begin notifying residents. That right now it's just the grace period until January, but to get people prepared and change our travel behaviors. So perhaps there's a way to prepare notice for utility bill inserts. Not everybody is on social media or reads the city's advertisement. So a utility bill might be an option. And then since it was not on your agenda tonight, and it didn't quite meet the Brown Act requirements for noticing, you've demonstrated that it is an emergency and that's why it was added. So I would request that the TAC submit a formal request to City Council urging staff to take action on this and begin notifying the residents immediately. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other items that the community wants to share not on this item? I mean, not on the agenda? Seeing none. We're going to, and thank you for your comments, and they're noted. The approval of the minutes, number A is approved minutes from February 20th, 24, the regular meeting. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good. Item B, approved minutes from March 19, 2024, regular meeting. Approve the minutes.
Approve those as well.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good. Okay. Business item 5, provide a presentation and receive feedback on the preliminary design of the San Pablo Traffic Calming Improvements Project. Turn it over to staff.
Good evening. My name is Leslie Lantero. I'm Assistant Engineer with the Public Works Department. This evening, I'm going to have our traffic consultant, Jimmy Jessup from Parametrics, provide the conceptual plan of San Pablo Avenue Traffic Calming Project. So I'd like to introduce you to Jimmy. He's one of our traffic consultants.
Thank you, Leslie, and good evening, committee members. I appreciate the opportunity to present. We'd like to talk about a project that is akin to a similar project that has been progressing in the city, the traffic calming project for Hillby Avenue. And this project is for San Pablo Avenue between Mescal and General Jim Moore Boulevard. It has a similar genesis in that original groundwork performed by local residents led to application for traffic calming as part of the city's traffic calming program. And so we'd like to kind of step through how the project came to be and how it tries to meet some of the goals of increasing safety for all roadway users. We'll also present some of the preliminary plans at this stage and then talk about next steps going forward. In terms of goals, the utmost and foremost goal is to increase safety for all users. And by users of the public roadway, we typically are indicating motorists, pedestrians, bicyclists, and others that utilize the street. And you'll see on the bottom right, one of the project goals in achieving an increased safety outcome is in reducing driving speeds. We'll see some of the data that we've gathered around vehicle speeds in our existing conditions section. One of the reasons why we do stress speeds is because in our world, speed matters. And in this case, talking specifically about pedestrian outcomes in pedestrian and vehicle crashes, that transition point between 20 and 40 mile an hour really can mean the difference between a pedestrian surviving a crash or a pedestrian succumbing to injuries as a result of a crash. And so when we're thinking of traffic calming or the idea of reducing vehicle speeds, we see this zone between 20 and 40 mile an hour as critical. And so we'll keep that in mind as we go throughout the presentation. Here's a picture of San Pablo Avenue, taken near the intersection of Havana. I like this picture because you get a good view of the bay in the background, and it really is. It depicts the picturesque nature of the city of Seaside. Within the map of the city, this is where we're looking again toward the top of the hill on the eastern edge toward General Jim Moore Boulevard. And this stretch is about a third of a mile long, 1,700 feet. Along it, notably, it's not a designated transit route, but there are no stop controls. There are no pedestrian crossings from Mescal to General Jim Moore. On the city's roadway classification, it's classified as a local street, but in reality, the opening of the connection to the new General Jim Moore about 10 years ago does provide more additional vehicle traffic than used to exist prior to 2014, when it really existed as a local street. I also like to think in my mind in comparing those connections to General Jim Moore, one of which was Hillby and Broadway being another. San Pablo is really among the steepest of them all. So you can see it on this diagram. Up toward the intersection with General Jim Moore, we have a roadway slope of 9 to 11%, which really is it's steeper than the recommended maximum for an application of vertical speed elements, speed humps, or the like. So that's one of the characteristics of San Pablo that makes it challenging to try to reduce vehicle speeds, especially in that uphill portion. That slope does tend to level off throughout the rest of our corridor. The city of Seaside took traffic counts in mid-November of 2022. This was shortly after the application for the traffic calming program was received. Traffic counts were taken over the duration of 1 week. We've averaged the weekday daily counts here on this chart and put that on an hourly basis. And you'll see that traffic volumes are relatively low during the morning commute period. In fact, they're relatively low for a connector street to a major arterial like General Jim Moore in general, except for this afternoon period. And the afternoon period doesn't correlate precisely with just the peak hour of typical commuter traffic, but there's also quite a high volume of traffic coming from General Jim Moore, turning westward down the slope that's accessing Ord Terrace Elementary specifically, as well as Monterey Bay Christian Academy. And so you see some school traffic associated with that downhill volume. During typical midday time periods, the way that I like to think about these average daily numbers, because these are large numbers, is if you were to stand on the roadway for 1 minute of time, how many vehicles would pass you in each direction on average? And as we see throughout most of the day, that average is about 1 vehicle going uphill and 2 vehicles going downhill over the course of 1 minute. Here are a few more pictures that give a good sense of the roadway in general, at least during midday time periods. Parking appears to be relatively underutilized. I will note residential parking is usually at its highest demand during overnight periods. But during the midday, when not many cars are parked on the street, you can see that the resulting roadway looks wide, inviting for elevated vehicle speeds. And then the downhill aspect, as we'll see, we also measure higher speeds going downhill. And so these characteristics as an unimpeded roadway do tend to facilitate speeding. And we see this quite commonly. San Pablo is no outlier. Now, the speed limit along the roadway is 25 miles an hour. That's consistent with the local roadway. You'll see some of our measured speeds in November of 2022 here. In the westbound or downhill direction, we see an average speed of 32 miles an hour. That's 7 miles an hour over the posted speed limit. And the 85th percentile speed, which is the speed at which 85% of all vehicles travel within. Another way that I think of this is 15% of all vehicles are traveling over the 85th percentile. This is 38 mile an hour in the downhill direction, 37 miles an hour uphill. So if you think about it in terms of traffic calming, 15% of all vehicles are going faster than 38 miles an hour on this 25 mile an hour street. Again, to compare these numbers with Hilby, these are on average about 1 to 2 mile an hour higher than what we measured on Hilby Avenue. Also, highest vehicle speeds registering upwards of 45, 50 miles an hour. We also investigated crash history along the corridor. For the years between 2017 and 2023, there were 14 total collisions. 5 of those took place at the intersection of General Jim Moore Boulevard. So 9 collisions within that time period occurred either on San Pablo, or there's 2 that we also included in our analysis on Juarez, just north and south of the roadway itself. I would say, fortunately, there's not a high number of collisions on this roadway, at least measured within the most recent 6-year time period. None of these collisions involve pedestrians or bicyclists, but we often do think about speeds and collisions, even if they're vehicle to vehicle, as being leading indicators of all types of collisions. One of the items of note is that 4 of the 9 collisions along the roadway were between a vehicle and a fixed object. Oftentimes we think of high vehicle speeds leading to less ability for driver reaction, less greater required stopping time. And so that might be a factor in terms of vehicles colliding with fixed objects such as parked cars. 4 of the collisions were at night, and looking at the primary collision factors for all of the collisions combined, vehicle speed is one of the many primary collision factors. We also saw a number of improper turning and vehicles trying to pass along the roadway itself. So to get a better sense of how residents feel about San Pablo Avenue, we initiated a survey both online, and we sent mailers to all addresses along the street. In February up till March 5th, we received 74 total responses. I would say that's quite a positive response rate. 25 of those responses were mailed in. It's a good reminder, and we had a number of free response comments that indicated, thank you for sending a physical mailer, as this is the most convenient way for me to respond to a survey. We'll go through some of these responses. About half of the respondents live along this segment of San Pablo, just under half. Most folks indicated using San Pablo on a daily basis, if not daily, another 20%, at least 4 to 6 times per week. And so we consider this a representative sample of individuals who are relatively familiar with the roadway. Nearly all of the respondents travel on San Pablo by vehicle. Quite a number of them walk, about half. And then there were some respondents that also travel commonly by bike. We asked the question, what is the most challenging aspect when using San Pablo? And the top vote getter was traffic speeds, as seen as a challenge. Over 2/3 of respondents indicated traffic speeds are challenging. And then the next 2 top vote getters were safety of people walking and crossing the street, very similarly related. And then closely following was safety of people biking. There's also a category that received 20 votes indicating street lighting or visibility were seen as a challenge. When we dove into the free response sections, it's actually discovered that most of those that are indicating visibility are referring to what the previous public commenter also noted. When approaching a roadway from a side street, sometimes it's difficult to see oncoming traffic if you're just trying to merge onto the roadway. And as we'll see, that was one of the quite concrete themes that came out of our survey responses. We also asked the question, which of the following traffic calming strategies would you like to see on San Pablo Avenue? The highest improvement that was indicated was improved sightlines. And improved sightlines is, as you see from this diagram, daylighting an intersection or putting red curb at an intersection. The benefit of this, and one of the reasons for Assembly Bill 413 now being enforced in California, is so that approaching vehicles to a roadway can see oncoming traffic, yes, but they will also have improved visibility to see pedestrians that are waiting to cross the street. I think we've all maybe been in that situation where we're trying to cross the street, but we're not sure if cars coming can see us around a parked vehicle. A number of respondents also indicated that speed humps or other vertical speed reducing elements would be desired. And then we also saw 29 respondents desiring a speed feedback sign. I will note that on Hilby, we found very low levels of support for a speed feedback sign. And for over 6 months on Hilby Avenue, there was the temporary police department trailer that had been giving speed feedback, and the feedback from residents on Hilby was that didn't seem to have much of an effect. But on San Pablo, there's a steeper slope, slightly different characteristics, but then since that resident population also does not have the same experience, that all could be contributing to the respondents having speed feedback sign as the 3rd highest desired improvement. Here's a offering of some of the free response comments. As you'll see, quite a number of feedback on the themes of people driving too fast, it being difficult to see oncoming traffic, the street feeling like a racetrack or raceway. That type of phraseology was frequent throughout our survey. We also saw a number of commenters requesting better marked crossing access from the neighborhood south of the park to Havana Solis Park, which runs parallel with San Pablo Avenue on the north side of the street. And so when we condense this down to our significant themes from the feedback, we see largely the difficulty approaching the street from side streets and from driveways, high speeds, again, high speeds being the highest indicated challenge, and then difficulty in crossing the street safely. So our team put all this feedback together and drafted conceptual improvement plans. We will call this a concept traffic calming plan for the corridor. In deriving an approach for what elements we wanted to include in this plan, we included 5 elements, as you'll see, including center line and edge line striping, improving sight lines, median islands, additional pedestrian crossings, and speed cushions. These are similar improvements as were integrated as part of the Hilby Avenue project. And the one additional aspect that we'll be considering for this project would be a speed feedback sign in the downhill direction. Locationally, what we've put on plans include median islands at the 2 locations that are circled. This is the intersections of San Pablo Avenue with Lincoln and with Havana. At those locations, we've also included a pedestrian crosswalk with a marked high visibility crossing that would also incorporate curb ramp, ADA improvements, flanking those crosswalks. You'll see the location of the speed feedback sign again in the downhill direction at Juarez. We propose currently 3 sets of speed cushions throughout the corridor. Speed cushions, again, as discussed, cannot be placed on slopes that are as extreme as they are toward the top of the hill. So we've tried to address vehicle speeds at the top of the hill with a redesigned alignment and also reducing some of the vehicle roadway space and offering it to an uphill bicycle facility instead. So this is what those plans look like at our concept level, working maybe from the top to the bottom, left to right. Over at Mescal, you'll see the curve coming toward Lincoln. The pedestrian crosswalk would cross on the east side of that intersection, providing access to the park from the neighborhood to the south. Along the length of this corridor, we propose improved sight lines or red curbing at 20-foot distance in all directions, not just the approach direction to the intersections. And then enhancing just the red curb with an additional painted bulb out, as is commonly called. This area could be painted or striped or otherwise indicate that vehicles are restricted from parking within 20 feet of the curb. And then you'll also see at Juarez Street the additional median islands, pedestrian crossing on the west side of the street as the park terminates there at Havana. So this crossing would also provide access to the park. And then up on the easternmost part of the corridor, we've realigned the roadway and tried to straighten out the approach to the downhill section, as a number of the collisions have happened there at Nadina and Juarez, cars veering off toward the north as they're coming down. But then we've also included a median island at the top to try to reduce the vehicle lane width of that portion of the roadway. You'll see on the south side of the road, we've reallocated some of that space as a bicycle facility coming up to bike boxes at the intersection. So those are our concept plans. That leads us from the last couple of months of the survey, community feedback, getting to these preliminary plans where we are today. Going forward, we're hoping to undertake engineering design throughout the spring of this year and construction following that. To talk a little bit more about next steps and staff recommendation, I'd like to bring Leslie back up. Thanks.
So staff's recommending for you guys to hear the presentation and provide feedback on the preliminary design of the San Pablo Avenue Traffic Calming Improvement Project between Mescal Street and General Jim Moore Boulevard. So you can ask any questions you have.
Okay, We have some questions. I have a few and then we'll bring it out to the audience. Any questions? Any questions? Okay. Okay. I looked at you first.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So just, has there been understanding that how, it looks like you're going to basically paint some bulb outs onto the ground at all the intersections. Other than, I mean, would we just have to do enforcement for parking? In those, because I just imagine that given how difficult it is to park and people are, parking on the street, I imagine it's probably going to be an issue with people parking in those areas, especially late at night. How many parking stalls would be lost in theory by doing all of this? And I do understand that a lot of those are already essentially gone because of the state law that Mr. Gonzalez just talked about. But how much parking, what is the impact on parking from something like this?
That's a great question. Thanks for asking. We didn't quantify the impact on parking. And you are correct in the sense that all of those locations would be enforceable under AB 413, starting in 2025. And so we drew up the preliminary plans largely to address the concerns that we found from our community feedback, as well as with the understanding that this is going to be part of the regulatory landscape going forward.
And so I saw that you had some projections as to, this will reduce speeds by 1 to 2 miles an hour. This would reduce it by a certain percentage. If we go with that 85th percentile number, I think it was 37, 38 miles per hour. If all of these were implemented, what kind of speeds are we looking at?
Thanks for the question. I think that's a great question. The numbers on the slide that indicates each of the treatment options are figures from published literature on typically average speed reductions before and after installation. And, as scientific experiments go, we don't see values on the combination of all of these improvements and how we would forecast that to reduce speeds. I will say vertical speed elements such as speed cushions tend to have their highest effectiveness at bringing the highest vehicle speeds back into the bell curve area. And then the other elements, narrowing the travel lanes and median islands, providing a horizontal deflection, additional crosswalks as a visual indicator, tend to reduce average vehicle speeds, typically by 1 to 2 miles an hour if applied individually. Our hope is that in combination, they would all, work together in a grand ability to achieve more than that.
But do you think that they would be more effective on those at the upper edge of the speed range? It sounds like that's what you just said.
Cushions specifically
Yeah.
will be more effective on bringing the higher vehicle speeds back into normal compliance, if you will.
So it's unlikely that this would actually get everyone, so they're traveling the speed limit, but at least they wouldn't be going 50 miles an hour.
I don't,
Unless they're teenagers trying to see how much air they can get on those things.
right. Speed cushions are, quite standard in reducing those high end of the vehicle speeds. And overall, as a combined package, we would hope that this traffic calming plan would be effective. It's hard to forecast if that would bring average speeds into compliance with the posted speed limit. That's difficult to say. But I think at least the concerns of the public and this being part of the traffic calming application process is one of the better designs that the city has at its disposal to outlay here.
Thank you.
Just a few questions. I'm going to assume that with the hopeful development of Campus Town, which is a large development area, and maybe down the road, East Seaside, as well as the fire station too, that will probably increase traffic to that area based beyond what you have listed with obviously increased housing. Is that a fair assessment?
I think that is potentially likely. We saw that increase in volume just with the opening of the roadway to General Jim Moore Boulevard. I might also add that one of the reasons why it's fun graphing the vehicle volumes by hours, we typically would consider a roadway with one vehicle travel lane in each direction to have a capacity of approximately 1,000 vehicles per hour. And
Wow.
during our peak afternoon period, we saw about 200 to 300 vehicles per hour. So in terms of roadway capacity, we wouldn't expect the traffic calming project to affect that at all.
Great. Then, and this is just my observation or what I've heard, and is it factual? And when you have the speed number check, I've heard they're really reasonably effective initially, and then it goes away. Then I've also heard, this is probably more rumor, that some young people see how fast they can go to manage their speed based on the sound. Do any of those make sense? And is there more one rationale than the other?
I would say it's a both and even more. In fact, that sentiment of people wanting to register a higher value, it was one of the bits of feedback we received during our Hilby Avenue outreach. I've also seen that written up in a number of pieces. But I think compliance typically tracks more with individual personality and sentiment. You know, if you're one that's going to see a posted speed limit and be more likely to comply with it, then you would also be more likely to comply with a speed feedback sign, and the opposite, vice versa.
So for the city, they're getting their best bang for their buck, for lack of a better word, is this speed numbers check really beneficial in the overall picture for the bad or the good it may do? I don't know, maybe that's not a fair question.
It's a great question. I think that it's worth taking into account sentiment from the residents themselves. It's the research and published literature is quite varied, and so that's why we typically tend to take a localized approach
Okay.
to speed feedback signs. I will say they're not overwhelmingly expensive, and so part of our evaluation will be would there be a simple place to mount it, solar availability, and we would do part of the cost benefit as part of the detailed engineering.
Then this is where I'm a little confused. On the AB 14, are we gonna paint those red? Are we gonna, I guess, highlight those areas by marking them red as maybe a good thing to do? Is that part of the plan? She says yes.
Yeah, AB 413 applies to all
Right.
marked and unmarked crosswalks, and every intersection fits the definition, the CVC definition of a marked or unmarked crosswalk. So on a city-wide scale, it's hard to say
I'm talking about
what the city will do.
Pablo
On
Pacific.
on San Pablo specifically, because this project is addressing traffic calming, we felt that it was prudent to include daylighting or red curbing
So you're gonna put
at each of those
red
intersections.
areas.
Right. So we would put red curb as well as the painted bulb out, and the painted bulb out having the just enhanced effect more than just a red curb.
So those residents that are concerned coming out of their block, as such, there would be red curb markings to make it more visible as they go into the San Pablo area.
That's correct.
Okay.
Right. There'd be red curb as well as a painted bulb out on the
Exactly.
roadway bed itself.
Right.
Right.
That's good news. Okay. And then this is pretty simple, I think. There's a dollar budget amount in the city's budget. It makes more general. So that significant dollar, we're gonna stay within that we're gonna work within the suggestions as well as what we can afford to make it work to be within the budget. And getting as much as we can for the best we can.
Yes, it was in the fiscal year ending 24 budget that was projected last year before we went in to pick the measures that we're choosing. So we will be getting a detailed engineer's estimate at the same time to see how close we came to that evaluation.
Next question, then is this budgeted for this fiscal year or do we have to roll the money over? I guess that's for more info.
Yeah, this will have to be rolled over and possibly incorporated more.
Exactly. I'm sorry for that one. I just, any other questions?
I just wanted to make just a public comment that Jimmy and both Leslie spent extensive amount of time with myself and the fire marshal on just talking about the effectiveness of speed cushions. We actually went out and did some testing to figure out how wide they should be so that our wheelbase would be we'd be able to traverse over them and not reduce emergency response. So we felt completely satisfied with all the efforts, and they feel like they're effective. And we also had conversations about the islands and the importance of making sure they're set back a bit, not in the intersection, so we can make that left-hand turn without having to back up and hitting a curb. So both Jimmy, the consultant, and Leslie, an engineer, have been very communicative with the fire department in regards to response. So thank you for that.
I have a question for Leslie.
Sure.
When Chair Pacheco had asked the question about the cost of the project, you said that we didn't get the cost in yet, but we may need to go get council to approve additional budget to go to the project to make those improvements.
Right, when we get a estimated budget of the conceptual plan,
Okay.
we may need to ask for more funds during for the next fiscal year. The funds will roll over.
Okay, so then how long from now would it take to design the project and then bid it out?
I think I have it going out to bid in August.
This August?
Yes.
Oh,
So going along with that concept, you would bring back in this fiscal year coming up, if additional dollars are needed, you'll bring it back sooner rather than later, as it
Yes.
Like-
It'll
in 2 months, yeah.
it'll be in the budget and what
So
the proposed budget
you'll get
for
the
next year.
cost estimate before we complete the budget?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Great. Thank you for your hard work. Okay, let's go out to the public. We all know that you have up to 3 minutes and so we're focusing on this issue here.
Linda Cunningham. I'm a member of the Homeless Commission, but I'm here speaking as my personal self, and I just think it looks beautiful. I'm in the 3 to 4 times a week probably category, the gray. I'm not every day, but similar. That's my route out. And I just think I could just see that if those stripes were on the side, it would slow me down. I don't know if there's even a sign telling the speed on that street. Is there even a speed sign, like right when you first turn onto it? And it does look to me on that General Jim Moore, on all those turns, when you turn left, those islands have been run over, whatever. If there was signage there, like I could see at night where people could easily drive over those islands. And I have noticed in Monterey, they have these cute little stripy reflectors that they've added to their islands. And I think they look really good. It really makes the island stand out. I literally watched somebody drive over an island, come in, out of Costco and go in north on, would that be Del Monte? And they just drove right over that curb, because if there was a sign there saying, hey, there's an island here, that thing's long gone. And I think it's great that you guys are gonna make that intersection safer. I can see why there's lots of accidents there. Anyways, it looks beautiful. I think the painting's great, and it really looks like it's gonna be a solution. I didn't know, I was trying to look at the picture and count the parking spaces. Would people be able to park where the speed cushions are, or would that become a no parking? I just didn't know if that was, when you're parking there in the evening. And anyways, I do want to appreciate it. All the work everybody put in the city makes for the fire truck. It just looks absolutely beautiful.
Okay, right when he did his first shot, I live right there. That's the corner I live on. Right there at Havana and San Pablo. And I personally would think I appreciate what all you're thinking about doing it, but I don't know if an island right there is going to cut it. I think y'all should, wouldn't it be a hell of a lot cheaper just to put stop signs right there? Right there at Havana. Because that's about the first place when the cars coming down that hill finally get an idea of what they're looking at. And if they see that stop sign right then and there, boom, that does it. It makes us all good people seeing the stop sign. I'm not a saint when it gets behind the wheel, but you see a stop sign, you got to stop. And I feel that can deal with that and the red around the corners, because that really helps better for the sight lines of the people on the side streets trying to get on and off of San Pablo. That's all I got to say.
Good evening, committee members. Michelle Overmeyer, resident of Seaside. I'm in the same category where I use this section of San Pablo 1 to 3 times a week, walking my dog. When I first read the staff report, I questioned the data collection because it was in November of 2022. So it does appear stale, but with talking with Leslie today, I understand that the data collection was needed to evaluate the neighbor's request to even start the process. So I want to say that the plan is pretty comprehensive. I feel that the data that was collected by the city and analyzed by the consultant validates the residents' concerns. So thank you for doing that. I don't know that doing more data collection would even change the requirements because or recommendations. What you have is pretty comprehensive. So I do appreciate that. I appreciate that the proposed design is incorporating the improvements that are consistent with AB 413 that we just heard about, the intersection daylighting law that you added tonight as an emergency item on this agenda. As far as the curb extensions, I would like to see them be permanent, physical curb extensions rather than just paint, because I think once drivers go through a couple times, they'll get used to them and continue speeding along. So having that physical barrier with the curb coming out is important. I would like to see more intersection crosswalks across San Pablo. I think that could provide more visual boundaries and warnings for drivers that are traveling on San Pablo and make the pedestrians feel a little bit more safe and have more opportunities to cross the street, because it is a pretty far distance with the crosswalks that exist. The travel lanes, I want to be cognizant of transit. Right now, this is not a fixed transit route, but paratransit does operate on this road. So creating travel lanes that are more narrow than 11 feet could preclude paratransit. This is not a popular opinion, I know, but when considering the loss of parking, remember that it's public land that's used for on-street parking. This neighborhood is largely low-density residential, and it has garages and driveways that accommodate multiple vehicles. And then I'm hoping you can ask staff to come back and talk about if they conducted any warrants for stop signs, because maybe doesn't meet the warrants for installing stop signs. But overall, I like the proposed program. So thank you.
Is there any more comments from the public? Yes, sir.
Hello, committee members. My name is Stephen McKay. I'm a resident of Seaside. I live on San Pablo. And I'm the one who began the petition. That is of June of 2021. And so I may not have had as much gray hair then, but you recognize me as being somebody who has harassed you endlessly about this. So I appreciate the opportunity. I can't speak to bulb outs or speed cushions or stop sign warrants or anything that is outside my purvey of intelligence. But what I can speak to is the emotional impact of each and every single one of the residents who signed the petition and each one of my neighbors who have spoken to me for the last 3.5 years as we've tried to get this done. I began with the fire department, understanding that, yes, it would be embraced in the name of public safety. So I've started this course to say, this is an emotional issue. This is a public safety issue. I'm not concerned with bulb outs or AB 114, whatever it might be, but I am concerned with our fear and our sense of safety. And when I speak with my neighbors who are holding a 2-day-old baby, saying, I can't pull out of the cul-de-sac because I can't see the traffic that is speeding, barreling toward me. You know, I can't walk my dogs or let my kids walk on the street because it's dangerous. Now, I can speak to the number of traffic accidents that maybe are in the data. It's a lot higher, and the volume of traffic is a lot higher than what was measured. I've seen it with my own eyes. And these aren't even accidents that are always reported because these people flee and they're speed related. Each person I spoke to say, well, hey, would you like to sign the petition? They had that petition out of my hands and signing before I could finish the sentence. They're adamant, they're scared, they're upset, they're angry, and they talk about city officials in a way that says they don't care about us. I think you do, but let's not lose sight of the fact that this is an emotional issue for people who are frightened because they don't feel safe and they want to feel safe. And when General Jim Moore was opened up to San Pablo, the traffic increased and is going to increase, but nothing was done to increase our safety. So I'm asking you to put that safety back so we feel good about it. Thank you for your time.
Any other comments? You only get one bite at the apple.
Could there be put the stop sign, sign
I-
on top of the hill
I
that
think-
says stop sign coming?
Right, I think
That's
that
just assuming.
he'll comment on your comment even though. Any other comments? Yes, go ahead.
Hello. Yes, Naomi, I'm Edith. I started the petition on Hillby. I'm here in support of San Pablo residents as well because we've all experienced the same issues since General Jim Moore has been opened. I know we've already done the traffic calming and the surveys. I don't know when that's going to even start, like the project that's happening now. But it would be ideal if we could just close the entry points. I mean, it's going to get worse when the new campus, plans come into effect. That's all I wanted to share. On 2 occasions, my son's almost been hit just crossing the street. So it is a fear factor, an emotional one as well. A lot of people have had their property damaged as well. So I don't want to lose a life. We just want to feel safe in our neighborhoods.
Thank you
Okay.
so very, very
Thanks.
much. Last call for comments. You can say something, Ms. Hanalari. Time's up. No.
I'm embarrassed. I'm not good at.
Oh, you're never.
I'm
embarrassed.
not good in talk. You want to give me my sign back and then I can hold it out. and you can read it.
I saved this for my wall.
Say, okay, thank you. Oh my God, all right. I live on Stowe Court.
Ms. Honolulu, you gotta, unfortunately, you gotta speak.
I have
for-
to work. I want to see everybody.
And we
No, I
appreciate,
have to.
you have, that's what I've
Oh,
been
that's
told.
how it works.
That's how, you gotta speak to us and then I'm sure.
Oh, okay.
They'll all hear you.
Can I do this?
You can do that if you like.
But anyways, I
You
live,
can pass it to that gentleman who's kind
Yeah.
of sort of in charge.
I live on Stowe Court, and for me to get out to San Pablo, I have to go half out on the street to see the traffic coming from the left or from the right. It's very scary. There are always cars are parked too close to the curb. So if I heard it right, you're gonna put a red paint on both sides so the cars cannot park there, right?
Expert at.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Comments, and he'll answer all those questions.
All right, well, I have cancer. I don't know how long I'm gonna live. So please make it safe that I can get out. Okay? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Honolulu. Yes, sir. Oh, you did great. You're a star.
My name's Mark and I'm a resident of San Pablo, and I kind of share a lot of what she just said. When you're trying to pull out from on San Pablo, it's kind of hard to see traffic from both sides because the vehicles are parked close to the intersection. And the painted, what are they called? Bulb outs. When you drive up Broadway, they don't have the painted, they have actual ones. And to me, that just seems a lot safer for the drivers as you're pulling out, as well as the pedestrians. Okay, that's it.
Thank you, sir, so very much. One last time, any more comments? Perfect. Okay, so let's bring it back to the dais. Any thoughts, considerations, recommendations as such? Yes, sir. Oh, and let him come back with some more answers. Do you have any answers, sir? I apologize. Do you have any answers to all those questions or comments?
Sure. Hopefully I don't say anything that Leslie's not expecting me to say, but thank you for all the comments. From my perspective, the best part of the job that we do is getting to hear, understand resident needs and try to address them and meet them. I appreciate that. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Great picture also, by the way. I get it.
She's an artist.
You might want to hold on to this and sell it at an art auction later. I think my reflection of what we've heard is great concept plan. Can we do more? I mean, I would almost summarize it in that way. So thank you. And I'm not at a place to speak about expenditure. I know we tried to draft the best concept plan that we could achieve within our originally estimated target for budget. And that's kind of the concept of life. We always have to make trade-offs, right? And so believe me, we'll be doing our cost benefit of all of our treatments during detailed design and trying to make sure that every decision that we make is the best bang for your buck, as we have discussed. One thing though I'm glad was brought up, we have not performed what in the traffic engineering field we call stop warrants. That is an analysis to determine if a stop control at an intersection is warranted. I think it might be worth us doing that. one of the inputs to a stop warrant is vehicle volumes. And so typically on lower volume streets, especially with side streets with low vehicle volumes, stop warrants are often not met, but there are a number of warrants, and I think that might be worthwhile us taking a closer look into. So thank you for those comments. And maybe just a note on the bulb outs. Again, there's a level of treatments to try to restrict parking in this way. There's doing nothing and letting AB 413 try to self-enforce. There's putting red curb. We have tried to come up with a painted bulb out that would more logically indicate a parking restriction than a red curb. And I will wholeheartedly agree the creme de la creme of treatments would be a physical concrete bulb out that would actually physically restrict parking at those locations. So those are kind of the suite of options that the project has to choose from when determining its final engineering design. Of course, there's just a scaled cost associated with each of those. I think that's all I wanted to address, but yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anything else? Seeing none, let's bring it back to the dais, and I apologize. You need. Go ahead.
Right. I just wanted to kind of say, so I like the plan overall. I think it does a good job of addressing what I'm hearing from people is visibility, vehicle speeds. And I think this does a good job of addressing those. The one area that I am concerned is several people brought up that, these are painted, not curbs. I'm worried about people having a false sense of security by thinking that because they're standing in a painted area, they're therefore safe, especially at night. When someone, if they're driving too fast and they're not familiar with the area, they may not realize that there is a painted bulb out. And if someone is standing in the bulb out, waiting to cross. And also, I mean, I also get worried about uncontrolled crosswalks for the same reason that people feel safe, but if a driver is coming too fast. So I would say that, I realize the cost issues here with putting in curbs. I mean, and that is a real concern, but ideally using something highly reflective, like, reflective paint or something that's highly visible at night, just so that, there's no confusion on the part of a driver who's not familiar, they're tired, it's dark. And if someone's trying to cross the street, we want to at least be very clear that this is not part of the lane. That would just be my only add-on thought. Yeah.
Any other add-on thoughts? I think obviously it was a very good report, and you always do a really fine job, so I appreciate that. I concur with Andy on his thoughts as well. And I'm just wondering if the possibility of looking at, as you come down San Pablo by Havana, and the idea of the stop sign might be a good idea, because, and I think it was 2 weeks ago, I walked up to that street and it's just a nice shot straight down without any logical reasons to stop. So it might be a consideration, just a little bit of time. I don't know if there's state laws associated with how many cars go by and if we can jump over that hurdle or not, but I do know there's a straight shot down that hill without any reason stopping. And on Hilby, I'm hopefully right here. If you go on Hilby and you come down General Moore, there is a stop sign as you make that, you know what I'm saying? So it's same kind of sort of issue. Probably more traffic on Hilby, but there's a larger slope on San Pablo. So just, if you can, if it's reasonable, if it's legal, just a thought. Okay. So our goal tonight is just for you to provide the presentation. It wasn't to move anything forward. stay, hopefully stay on schedule and let's get this done because it impacts the neighborhood. Is there anything else that you expect us to do of words of wisdom or?
No, thank you for your comments. I just want to let the public know that there is a big rollout plan in the back. If you want to go look at a closer look of what was presented. I know it was really hard to see on the screen. So on the table, it's rolled out and you can see exactly where the crosswalks will go and where we're proposing for all the red curb. So if anyone wants to go check that out, it's rolled up in the back.
Thank you so very much. A great report and thank you for your time very much, Leslie. And
Leslie, that's behind the council chambers, right?
Sorry, yes, it's behind the council chambers on on the white table.
so it's you have access to it, I believe is what we're saying. Is that correct? They have easy access to it. Okay. Yeah, so moving on, I hope, is item B, consider replacing 20-minute parking designation with 2-hour parking designation in front of 1424 and 1444 Fremont Boulevard.
Good evening. Once again, I'm Leslie with the Public Works Department. And I'll be presenting on a request to replace 20-minute parking designation with 2-hour parking in front of 1424 through 1444 Fremont Boulevard. We received the request from Mr. Cardenas, who operates a business at 1444 Fremont. And there are, right there. There are 4 businesses along this block, a vacant lot, and a vacant lot. The businesses include a retail boot shop, an income tax service business, a custom embroidery shop, and a liquor store. The curb is painted green along the entire frontage of the block. Customers of these businesses often park longer than 20 minutes to shop and conduct business. More recently, the Public Works Maintenance Crew installed 4 20-minute parking signs along this frontage. The 20-minute parking designation along this block was approved in 1998. At that time, the curb was painted green without the 20-minute parking signs. The Seaside Municipal Code defines green curb markings to mean no standing or parking for longer than 20 minutes at any time between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. of any day except Sunday and holidays. The section of Fremont Boulevard is within the Central Traffic District. Per the municipal code, it states when signs are in place giving notice thereof, no person shall stop, stand, or park any vehicles between the hours of 8 and 6 of any day except Sunday and holidays for a period longer than 2 hours. This allows the city to time restrict parking in this area. So the recommendation is to replace the 20-minute parking signs with 2-hour parking signs and gray out the green curb along the frontage of 1424 through 1444 Fremont Boulevard. The green curb markings and 20-minute parking signs will remain along the frontage of the vacant lot and liquor store. So, does anyone have any questions?
Any questions? Yes, sir.
Does the applicant live upstairs in the, on his property?
You know, I'm not quite sure if the applicant lives upstairs. I was aware that his wife conducts the tax business upstairs, runs the business upstairs. So I'm not certain where the resident lives. I mean, where the business owner lives.
Because the applicant, that's his address, correct? He wants the area in front of his business.
Right. And when I talked to him, he was talking to his neighbor at Cali Logos, who has the embroider shop, and he was wanting to, you know, and just to let you know, we did send out notices of the meeting to let them know that this was happening. We haven't received any public comment regarding this item.
And the applicant does have a parking garage,
He
correct?
does, so that,
Used for storage and no room to park.
I'm not really sure. How do I work? Can you put back the, yeah. So that's fine. So that little break in the green curve right there is the parking garage. And I'm not quite sure if there's storage in there. I just know that there's a couple spaces, and I believe he shares that that parking area with whoever's upstairs, if there's other businesses.
Okay. Thank you.
Just one question. If I heard it correctly, 2 out of the 4 businesses,
2 out of the 4. Well, there's, yeah, no, 3. 2 out of the 4. There's the tax upstairs, the tax business upstairs, the boot on the corner, the boot retail store, and Cali Logos. That would all be 2-hour parking.
and I get that.
Okay,
But 2 out of the 4, or 3 out of the 4, or 1 out of the 4,
whatever.
directly or indirectly, you heard conversation that they like the idea of 2-hour parking.
Correct. And I think what occurred is that people were parking, conducting business, and the signs went up. And that's when they said, oh no, it's 20 minutes, we can get cited. And they said, you know, it takes longer to shop in my business. And I do, my wife does taxes, and it takes her longer than 20 minutes when she's with the customer. And same with the neighbor at the embroidery store. So they realized that, you know, we have the parking enforcement officer now, and tickets will be issued. And so they wanted to address this, you know, issue as soon as possible.
3 out of the 4, be it the husband and wife team, like the idea.
Yeah, I didn't talk to the embroidery shop owner, but the owner of the boot store told me that he was not happy with the 2 hour. Yeah, he was hoping that he would be supportive too.
Any other questions? Let's bring it out to the public. Seeing none, bring it back here for a direction. Any motions, any thoughts? We have to make a
I'll
motion.
move to approve.
For a second. I'll second. Any other, okay, so all in favor? Aye. So it's last. And then under staff communication, maybe this is more of a question. Is staff gonna bring back this AB 14? Take care, thank you. For guidance consideration to the council, is that a plan, or? I know that was a thought by a resident. I'm just saying, is that something that you're gonna do or not do, or do we put it on the agenda, or help me out? Can you just, because it seems like it's gonna be a tough road either way you go.
Right. It's my opinion that we should do some kind of outreach, like the resident had mentioned. It's similar to a fire hydrant. You just know you can't park in front of, but we do red curb those as well. So this would be a similar situation. You're not allowed to park 20 feet from the, you know, approach to a crossing. And so this is eventually, you'll know, maybe it's something we can incorporate when we, you know, do pavement projects. So we'll have to discuss it with the public works director and find direction.
See if there's a large mailer or something or rent a curb.
Right, we can probably do a large mailer. Like not everyone is online, so I understand that. Not all, everyone wants to know what we're doing.
Yeah.
That's fine.
I'm just concerned that people start sooner or later gonna get tickets because they're not gonna listen because we don't.
Well, I don't even know right now if you guys are enforcing the warning of parking in front of crossings.
Right now, I think they're just giving warnings right now.
Oh, they are,
Yeah.
okay.
But also, I mean, it's not a seaside thing. This is a statewide thing. So
Exactly.
it doesn't matter what city any person is in. These are the new rules. So, I mean, I think that's just something to bear in mind that it's really any city, anywhere they go. It's not just about where you park in Seaside,
Right.
where you park
Anywhere.
anywhere in the state.
I thought I saw a TV news thing where Monterey is starting to paint red curbs currently. Pretty sure I saw that on. You know, because they mentioned the law, they saw people, staff painting red areas, that's such as you're referring to.
Well, we're going to be probably discussing it at TAMC at our TAC meeting in the future to find out what other jurisdictions are doing around the county. So maybe they have some suggestions or a joint effort into getting the word out.
I think the biggest issue is going to be the 20 feet. If it's not marked, I mean, if a driver is 18 feet from the corner, are they going to get cited? How do they know without carrying a tape measure around whether they've actually gotten 20 feet away? I can see that as being the point of contention once this gets implemented for unmarked areas. If it's marked, then it's easy. But if there's nothing there that the driver can use to figure out where they're at, then there's going to be a lot of conflicts and angry people.
Yeah, also.
Well, I leave it up to the police department.
Not to be critical. It's gonna be really challenging because you're gonna go buying a cup. If they're not doing anything, they're gonna say, oh, that looked like 15, and then they have to bring out a tape measure. It could be a nightmare enforcement.
Right,
That's
kind of like the
maybe I'm
fire
wrong, but
hydrants.
that's what I'm considering.
Kind of like fire hydrants, they're not all the curbs are painted red
Yeah.
and you can't park within 15 feet of a fire hydrant.
Yeah.
So gotta pull up the tape measure and we have tape measures.
Yeah, I just don't see that happening in reality often.
Right.
So can maybe down the road, whenever the down the road is, maybe we can bring this back and do something with it, because I think it's
Sure.
gonna, at some point, it's gonna impact a lot of people.
Yes.
Okay. If I'm correct, unless there's anything else, seeing none, let's call for an adjournment at 6:22. Thank you. Thank you for your time. Great job.